All right. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great Wednesday, whether it's about lunchtime or you're starting your day or you're getting into your evening. Welcome to our Spotify for Artists Masterclass on the art of hyping up new music. At Spotify, we've been developing brand new tools to help artists and their teams build hype for new releases and connect with new fans right on the platform our music is streamed, Spotify. So we were super excited to host this session to understand how teams are utilizing Spotify for Artists' new suite of release tools, but just as importantly, just how to amplify new releases and measure success more broadly. Really excited for today's discussion. We have an incredible panel of three industry experts joining us today. We have Jeff from Downtown, Whitney from Mom and Pop, and Tom from Piath. And I will hand it over to them shortly to introduce themselves. But first, just let me introduce myself. My name is Vic. I've been at Spotify for about 7 years now, and I've spent most of my career here working on artist and label partnerships. So I know I've had the pleasure of meeting many on the call. But more recently, I've taken up a new opportunity to lead a team called Content Product Specialists. And our team's goal is to ensure new products designed for artist expression and music discovery are optimized to meet the needs of Spotify's top partners, which is those on the panel and all of you joining today. And most recently, we've been super focused on countdown pages and clips. So that's a little bit about me. I want to hand it over to our panel. But panel, as I ask you all to introduce yourselves, I'd love to hear any highlights you might have of artists you're working with currently, campaigns you're proud of. And I also want to start with this prompt of tell us about a memorable new release campaign. What made it stand out? And that can either be a campaign that you worked on personally or one that you just saw out there in the world, maybe an artist you're a fan of that you were really impressed by. I leave it to you all to decide which path to take. But Jeff, why don't we start with you? Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Vic. Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm the VP of Marketing at Downtown Artists and Label Services. Been here for just about 4 years and super excited, obviously, to be with this group and talk through some of the campaigns we've all been a part of. I'm actually going to give you one that's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, Vic, and folks
Great.
watching. We have a very exciting up and coming emerging artist called Marrow. We've worked with the Spotify team on a variety of different, engaging activities with the artist, but through his recent album release, Trauma Lullabies, we saw that the showcase campaigns actually generated some of the highest listenership for Marrow in over a year. And in particular, the thing that we found most notable, and while I'm working with his project manager and the other marketing managers on our team, was the growth in active listenership. So this is both a benefit of the tool itself, but also the amazing analytics that Spotify provide to our team that allow us to actually see the effectiveness of the campaign. And it was a really great experience. We do love Marrow's music, but of course, seeing other people love it is the ultimate goal. And yeah, that's the Marrow story.
Love that. Thanks, Jeff. Whitney, let's go to you.
Thanks, Vic. Hi, everyone. I'm Whitney Dublin, Senior Director of Digital at Mom and Pop. I have been there for about 4 years, based in New York. And I'm going to talk about Del Watergap because his story is just a really great artist development story, I think. For those who are unfamiliar, he was a student at the Clive Davis School at NYU. He put out his song Ode to a Conversation Stuck in Your Throat back in 2020, and it experienced some virality at that point. And he could have, just been stuck in like viral purgatory after that, but he put in the work and he had been like on the road. We put out his debut LP that year in October, and that we partnered with Spotify very closely on that. We worked toward his first ever cover on a playlist with Spotify, which we ultimately got to at the album release point. And then between his debut album release and the sophomore album release, which came out last September, he was on the road consistently opening for various artists, headlining his own sold out shows globally, and just really, laying the foundation for his artistry to continue building. And so when we went in to pitch his sophomore album, I Miss You Already, and I Haven't Left Yet, he had like a really great resume for us to go in and pitch to our partners. So we were able to come out the gate swinging with an all new indie cover, with his lead single, All We Ever Do Is Talk. And then throughout the campaign, we continued to utilize Spotify tools, including Showcase and Marquee. And we were able to continue to amplify and ultimately build toward the front page indie cover for album release. And then we came back in January this year with a collab track with Holly Humberstone called Cigarettes and Wine. And that allowed for us to, call back to the album, create various campaigns across short form, and again, run Showcase to call back to that project. And we ultimately got a billboard in Times Square. So I just like to tell that story because it shows that, you have to do the work, and he's not skipping any steps. And so he's like Mr. Congeniality. He has all of his celebrity friends reposting his music and, just supporting him along the way. And now he's about to go on the road with Niall Horan. So just some words of encouragement for any, DIY developing artists out there that, the work really does matter, and it can lead to really great success. And if you leverage the tools on Spotify, that all that can come together to lead you potentially to one day playing at, MSG, or, really great high aspirations that you all may have. So really cool story, and just really staying tuned to see where he continues to go from here.
I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Whitney. And I think it's a great point of, right, like there are obviously great opportunities that Spotify can offer, like playlist covers and billboards, but that goes hand in hand with what the artist and their team are able to put in the work, right? And you maximize the tools, and it's great to see those both sides working together. Tom, let's go to you. You mind introducing yourself and a exciting release campaign?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here. My name's Tom Hoare. I'm Global Director of Audience Development and Partnerships for PIAS worldwide, but I'm based here in our LA office, but I'm originally from London, as you can probably tell by my accent. And prior to PIAS, I was at Sony. I was at Polydor, one of the labels of Universal. So I've kind of done this label thing, working closely with Spotify on the major side, on the indie side for 15 years now. And I guess the recent kind of release highlight that I'm going to talk about is Arlo Parks, who I know is a huge fan of Del Water Gaps, and I think they're very much in the same kind of orbit, and are constantly kind of bigging each other up. Arlo, on her second album, which we put out about this time last year, her sophomore album, My Soft Machine. So that was the follow-up to the Mercury Prize-winning debut album that she had put out, Collapsed and Sunbeams, that came out in 2021. Spotify has been there for Arlo since day one. We've worked with Arlo from the very beginning, and Spotify were really, really super on board. And I think the feature that we were really, really pleased to see being rolled out right around the time that we were coming to market with the second album was countdown pages. So this was this time last year. They were in a much more limited beta than they are now. They were still something that were only being given out to a handful of top partners, but we were just really, really astonished and really, really encouraged by how much every new clip that we were adding to the countdown page was really tangibly, noticeably moving the needle in terms of those pre-saves, and really making a difference in terms of, I'm sure we're all familiar with that post-release engagement stat that you can see in Spotify for Artists now, where you can see what percentage of your base, of your followers, go ahead and stream your new release. We were seeing that increase with every new track that was rolled out throughout the campaign leading into the album, and we attribute a huge part of that to Spotify countdown page and clips in general, because it's just a wonderful way to, as Vic said at the top of this call, fish where the fish are swimming, reach people on the platform where consumption is taking place, and that formed the foundation of a really great partnership with Spotify on that Arlo album, where we did an incredible immersive fan-facing listening experience in London at the Church Studios, Paul Epworth Studios, where a lot of the album was recorded. We kind of created the My Soft Machine walkthrough experience. There were the posters that Arlo had on her wall in her teenage bedroom all over the place, and big TV sets. And yeah, it was just a really, really incredible experience for fans that lived on as a kind of after movie that we of course published to Spotify clips. So yeah, like the Dell Water Gap parable, it's really about utilizing as many different surfaces that Spotify has to offer, both from editorial but also from kind of broader partnerships, and weaving your wider kind of campaign storytelling into the direct fan tools that Spotify has.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Tom. And I promise I didn't ask Tom to plug Countdown Pages within his first 5 minutes of talking, but thank you. It just, obviously a tool very near and dear to my heart. When I first joined Spotify, I feel like it was one of the first things I was saying is like, how do we not have a native pre-save solution? No knocks on these third-party services, but it's a lot of work for the fans to, jump through a few hoops and make sure it's all working correctly. And just really excited that we finally have a native tool like on the platform where fans can see upcoming releases and easily pre-save, easily be notified as more updates to that page come. And really excited to get that tool out to more artists and their teams in the future. So thanks for the plug. Cool. So let's get into the meat of the discussion. We've about 30 minutes left, and really want to kind of structure the rest of our chat focusing on kind of those three main phases, if you will, of a release cycle, right? So thinking about first pre-release, second release week, and then of course third post-release. So let's start with pre-release. I'm thinking about, as you are chatting with your artists, as you're coming together as a team before anything has been announced, whether it's a new single or album, before you make that first announcement on social, as you're preparing assets, like what is on your pre-release checklist? Like what are the types of tools or campaigns you're using, you're preparing for to make that pre-release moment kind of as impactful as possible?
I can take this one first. So I would say the first thing that we do before anything really is we conduct a really thorough audit of who the audience is. So my role spans both the kind of DSP partnerships, but also the audience development side of things. So it's a lot of hats that I wear and my team wears. And we will, whether it's a brand new signing that we just made, or whether it's a returning artist on their third, fourth, 10th album, we will do a really deep dive into the data, into who the audience is, who the potential audience is, how that audience might have changed if it's an artist that's been away for a while and is kind of coming back to the market after a lengthy absence. And that will incorporate streaming data. Obviously, Spotify for Artists is a really, really valuable tool in how we look at where those demographics are and where the plays are coming from, but also a variety of first party and third party social analysis tools that we use. And we actually create what we call an audience DNA that becomes a kind of Bible for the campaign that we circulate around the entire team. And hopefully it proves to be a useful document for the streaming team, for the international team, for the press team, for the brand partnerships team, because it is really who the artist is and what their DNA is. And that will then inform our content strategy and our rollout plan. And an example from a recent release that I would point to would be, we are very proud to be working with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds to put out their brand new records in August this year. And obviously that's an artist with an enormous wealth of back catalogue, right? And there can almost be a little bit of a barrier to entry there. There can almost be a bit of a like, well, where do I even start with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, So what we really wanted to do, but especially because it had been a minute since the last Bad Seeds record, was a phase that we put a lot of resource into in the pre-release building of our campaigns, which is reheating the catalog, right? We know for a fact that those Spotify kind of algorithmically determined surfaces like Release Radar, Your Daily Mix, Daylist more recently, all of those ones are populated by a variety of signals, but really, really chief among those signals is your recent listens. So we knew that in order to give our new Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds single the best chance of dropping into as many different users' playlists of those type as possible, we knew it was imperative to warm up the back catalogue. So it just so happened that when we were in that pre-release phase, it was coinciding with a big anniversary. I can't remember what it was. It might even have been the 40th anniversary of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds forming. So we were like, yeah, great. That's a great opportunity to kind of hang something around. Made a bunch of playlists on the Spotify, on the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds Spotify page. Drove to those playlists from Nick's enormous services, mailing list, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And yeah, managed to kind of pump up the catalog stats, which then led to the new single Wild God, which we released in March, dropping into so many more users' playlists, and again, that all important kind of post-release engagement stat in Spotify for artists being really, really healthy.
Nice. I can jump in. So we're currently rolling out Maya Hawke's third album, Chaos Angel, coming out next Friday. Quick plug. And we have been, well, we definitely, address all the analytics that Tom just mentioned as well, but I also just want to focus on like more of the creative stuff. So we're obviously asking for the artwork, the liners, the the clips and all that good stuff. But I like to put a big emphasis on storytelling and, collecting as much of that story as we can up front. And with Maya, obviously she is currently filming a small show called Stranger Things. And so we knew that heading into this campaign. And so she had a break in December, November, and we just took advantage of that time to collect as much of her telling that story as possible. Since, a lot of folks know her from her acting, obviously, so we want to try to contextualize the music side of her. And so we went to Electric Lady, where some of the album was recorded, and just captured a bunch of content, asked her the questions, that the fans want to know, like, what was your inspiration behind this? Like, what was the creative process like? What were the collaborators? Can you tell us about the inspiration for select songs? Like each of our focus tracks, we got her to do some deep dives into that, and we just banked that content ahead of time so that we could roll it out through the campaign. And that's what we've been using for clips since she hasn't been, it's incredibly accessible, obviously. So we've been using that for clips throughout the campaign for each focus track. And we've also been attaching them to her countdown page, which shout out again to the countdown page, because that's been a really great tool to promote this project as well. And I come from a catalog background. Originally, I started in catalog, and I just know some of the challenges that you can face in catalog, like when you're looking to promote something that's 20, 25, even 40 years old, as Tom mentioned, like you may not have access to those assets readily. And I just try to think ahead to potentially mitigate some of those challenges. So we could always have this content to repurpose or, rejig somehow later on down the line, which has been pretty successful for us.
Thanks, Whitney. Yeah, Tom and Whitney, I think, touched on a lot of the same and sort of such important pieces of that data audit and health check and all of the pieces that go into an important phase of the campaign before you've even maybe delivered the music or seen the music video. Obviously, internally for us, also looking at some of the tools that are out there like Chartmetric. Obviously, Spotify's own data is incredible. But then searching, I think, deeper within that for like what are the markers of success that are a little bit more pronounced and engagement based than just streaming. And that is the beauty, I think, of being able to align the data from your own social media, what's publicly available in Chartmetric, and then going deep into Spotify's own system to reveal where saves are coming from, where playlist ads are coming from, where followers are coming from, because we know that on a cumulative basis, those things can be difficult to track and achieve. But when you're looking at more granularly and you're building a campaign out, making a very, very educated decisions about how you're going to direct those funds, or even just the messaging, to kind of point at Whitney's storytelling piece. Who are you telling the story to can sometimes frame and change the message itself. And we've seen artists experience such a wealth of success using the tools properly, but also, I think, finding their home and finding their ability to authentically use clips, countdown, any of these things. And there's obviously opportunities, I think, within that pre-release stage for the checklist to look at what the potential audience is. We think of the future growth of the artist, obviously, as a little bit of the uncharted territory that we get to march forward with them into. And so looking at their audience today can certainly inform us about like the warmest, most excited and engaged folks, but we also want to look further into the future and sort of make assessments about where we see the data pushing to next. And where is maybe the genre going, where are maybe other artists that are popular within that region starting to pop off. So it's super exciting to have access to all that data, and it just helps us, frankly, increase the length of that checklist, if anything, and the efficacy of it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I feel like we covered a lot of ground between your three answers. So thank you so much, and all great tips. So as we get into pre-release, I'm also curious about teasing, right? So we've built this clips product that we hope can be a great use case for kind of teasing snippets of music prior to full release. Obviously, this is a tried and true strategy across all social and other platforms. But I'm curious how you all think about teasing music, right? How many snippets are you trying to get out there before the full song? How early are you starting to tease snippets of that music before the full song drops? Like, how do you guys think about teasers, and how much are you planning versus just, oh, the artist got out of the studio, they wanted to go live and share some stuff in their car, right? So curious what the strategy is there, and then or how much you're just kind of rolling with what the artist wants to do.
I'll jump in and just say, I think because each artist is unique and, of course, uniquely adept at social media, we really try to approach it from the perspective of offering the resources and sort of gap filling measures that we can in order to give the best sort of chance for their content to really hit with their audience. And again, that potential audience I was just referencing. So that could be anything from delivering ideas and actually getting in the mud with them and going deep, deep, deep into the social sort of teasing phase and saying, look, okay, you're 4 weeks out from the record. Let's start actually getting your fans riled up. Whereas in some cases, it's really just giving those artists who are natively exceptional social media users the best practices and more like the key and the methodology and the coordinates for all the things they need to be doing so that we're in lockstep and we're not necessarily standing in their way. Instead, we're kind of like behind them, pushing it forward. And I find that that is also, from an authenticity standpoint, you find the content just hits home way, way, way more in a way more likely basis. And you're just in a better situation with the artist because they're proud and engaged with their own content, and they feel like they can, continue to post it without somebody sort of hitting a, hey, you must post button. So it's very unique from project to project, but the one thing I would say is a commonality is just looking for moments where the artist actually feels strongly about what they're doing, or feels strongly that they can engage their fans to create that marketing moment for them through creation using their sound or clips or anything like that.
Yeah, my answer is very similar to Jess. At Mom and Pop, we very much believe in artist creative control. And so we kind of let them lead in that sense, but we do provide best practices for artists who are more short form native, like they could be teasing months out. But we will try to encourage them to maybe drop a pre-save link or drop a Layla link. So we are capturing some data along the way. And I think that that's been the most effective strategy for us.
Yeah, I think as Jeff and Whitney have touched on, like it's completely bespoke, it's completely case by case basis, and there's not really one kind of hard and fast rule. I also find that the best practice in this realm tends to vary quite a lot by genre. But what I will say is, based on our own kind of internal benchmarking and internal research, we do see that if you post clips and you build a bit of pre-awareness and a bit of anticipation, a bit of excitement, you will typically see a different streaming curve once the track is out, and once you come off all of your New Music Fridays or your, all new, all now, or whatever that kind of kind of initial spate of playlist that you get. Sometimes you can have a lovely, great bit, kind of start out the gates, and then New Music Friday refreshes, and you're like, oh, okay, now the streams have dropped down to a quite disheartening number. We find that if you have built that excitement and built that pre-release narrative, that can sustain, and the drop-off can be less severe. So we do tend to, yes, provide best practice, encourage. Of course, we are never prescriptive. It is always led by the artist's excitement, and creativity and authenticity is absolutely paramount. But we are also led by and guided by what's worked for us in the past across our enormous volume of releases that we're putting out. So we do see, tangible benefits to driving some familiarity with the track, especially in the dance and electronic space. That's what I was getting at with the kind of genre skew there. We find that because those tracks are broadly, not wanting to generalize too much, but because they're broadly more about just a track being a banger and an earworm, rather than necessarily so much of a kind of artist development, getting an audience to care about and buy into your artist as a brand. The pre-release teasing and that familiarity before the track is out is all the more important in that space. But yeah, really, it's always a conversation with the artist. It's always led by what they want to do and what feels comfortable with them.
Well said. Thank you all. Cool. Well, okay, so we're in the pre-release phase. We're teasing songs. We're dropping content. We're warming everybody up. Let's get to release week, right? Or the next moment to anticipate is release day. So I'm curious, as you're preparing once again for that release moment, we got the pre-saves going, we've got the content running. Like, how does the checklist evolve, right? Like, what are you all thinking about? What is your release week checklist? And every Friday, so much new music coming out. What are you thinking about to try and cut through the new music noise and make sure your new release, your artist's new release, really stands out?
I'll go ahead and jump in again. I think we've established an order here. Why not? I think release week, again, is very unique for the artist, but you should really be paying attention to not just Spotify, but the larger ecosystem of where those fans exist when they're on the internet, and which of those platforms they're really going to be heavily populating, so that you can take advantage of simply the traffic that your pages are already generating. And then, of course, I think pointing at some of the stuff Whitney and Tom have already indicated, a lot of these other platforms, similarly to Spotify, the recommendation engine is governed by, a huge system of algorithms. And so by teasing and starting to increase engagement on posts that have your song, your new release, your new music video, your fan posts that include the song, all of those types of things, in release week, you are even starting to create the proper signals that can cut through that noise. You sort of think about all the things you see out there on the internet as competitive messages to what you're doing. And the reality is there's only so many hours and so many minutes in every given day. So you have to take advantage and really look for those, hot moments of engagement on your YouTube, on your TikTok, on your Instagram, on any of those other places. I hope you have D2C channels like Discord or a newsletter, and can utilize those to make a dent in that noise structure. But I also think importantly, you really have to also be consistent in your messaging. I see a lot of artists post once or twice, and then maybe kind of back off the promo engine. And I think that's just often for a lack of ideas because they don't want to just be marketing themselves constantly. And I think, again, that's just about creative thinking. You've got to find ways to drive people to the music authentically that aren't like, go listen, just call to action stuff doesn't necessarily drive home the message you might want. Give people a great reason to go listen to your song instead of just telling them to do it, is certainly something that I find much more effective.
Yeah, release week, we are asking our artists to ramp up the posts, like ramp up the energy, driving back toward the pre-save, ramp it up. Yeah, that's definitely what we're encouraging them to do. Obviously, some don't listen, as Jeff just mentioned. They're not necessarily willing to, make this be shameless and plug themselves, but to the extent possible, that's what we're encouraging them to do, and just to hone in on those platforms where they know they're loved. Again, as Jeff was mentioning, just to focus on those. I can talk about Tiny Habits right now, another plug. They are a new indie folk band releasing their debut album on Friday. And they've been kind of teasing their various tracks from the album across their socials, utilizing various footage from videos and potential canvas options that we'll be using. So just using whatever assets are available. They're also currently on tour. So they've been, just trying to actively show the audience that is attending their shows that there's some love for those territories by reposting fan and audience footage. And that's what we've kind of been encouraging them to do, is just show the fans that they're being seen and that, that this album is coming, and, just increasing their visibility on release week is the goal.
Yeah, and I would add to the excellent points that Jeff and Whitney have made. When we drill specifically into Spotify on release week, that's often where we want to make use of the fantastic tools like Marquee and Showcase, right? Because with those, you can get really, really specific on meeting your audience goals, whatever they are for that release. It might be growth, it might be engagement, it might be reactivation. For reactivation, you're going to want to target that previously active audience within the segmentation options that are available to you when you're booking. For engagement, you're going to want to go with active audience, and those are going to be your real kind of super fans. We see that Showcase, which is obviously the newer of the two of those sponsored kind of recommendation formats, it's incredibly potent. I think that there's a stat that it's like users that see it are 5 times more likely to go on and stream more releases from that artist's repertoire than users that don't see it. So we find that it's just an incredibly powerful kind of additional punch, really, to make sure that the message is out there, reaching the right people. Our focus in terms of our audience building on Spotify is all about building followers. We love Spotify monthly listeners, and that's a great metric. And this is a wider tangent, but I feel like in the industry at large, it's become a bit of a vanity metric, right? Spotify monthly listeners. I think it's what a lot of agents and bookers and TV bookers and whatever will just kind of look at as a shorthand glance at the size of an artist's audience. And we love monthly listeners, but followers is what we're really, really keen on building, because we know that there are so many surfaces that that Spotify is pushing those followers to, on platform and off. I'm sure we've all noticed an increase in the wonderful kind of CRM emails that Spotify sends. It used to just be kind of the occasional fans first thing. I don't know about you guys, but now I get emails about these artists that you follow are playing in LA soon, or here's a roundup of new releases. And I think that's a real value add to us as partners and rights holders and labels, because it's just putting more targeted stuff right in front of the people to whom it matters the most. And so yeah, release week is when we're utilizing those tools, when we're really drilling down on our kind of followers, trying to convert those into new listens, and we want that cascade effect as well, unless it's literally a brand new artist with their first release. But more often than not, it's an artist that already has a bit of catalog on the service, and we want to make sure that we're turning those listeners into fans, and turning one listen into five, and into an album pre-save, or into adding a previous album to the collection. So all of those different kind of pressure points are things that we're really staying super tight on throughout that release week and immediate post-release period.
Awesome. Thank you all. So obviously release week, very exciting moment, celebratory moment, etc. But I also know it's important to always frame release week as the start of the journey, not the end of it, right? And it is not all just about first week. So I'm curious, as we think about transitioning to kind of the sustain section or the post-release section, again, I am curious, maybe it varies by genre or for established artists versus developing artists, but how long do you think about the post-release, the sustain period? And again, like kind of how does that checklist change? Okay, the music's out, we've got some analytics coming in, we've got some fan reactions. Where does the pivot go from there as far as the checklist and what you're working on? And how might it vary, for artists at different phases of their career?
Certainly, I think, again, unique based on the campaign and where you are. So if you've got other music on the horizon that maybe you've already built that, into the narrative of the campaign, you may not be spending such a crazy amount of time, dedicating your marketing team's energy and your artist's energy to driving to that song. You might have found an opportunity to bridge the gap to the next release, or even to the album itself, the tour, the larger sort of tentpole marketing moments for that campaign. That said, I think the beauty of music marketing today is that the song doesn't stop getting streamed until it stops getting streamed. And we all get to see that data, the artists, the digital marketing agencies that they in some case bring in just for a project or two, their managers, everybody has access to this stuff. And so we can all craft, compelling, further down the line marketing moments that help re-engage a song, or even drive further the fact that, yes, this might have been a single from last year, but new to most of the market is, new and exciting to all of us. Discovery mode, I think, is an amazing tool that Spotify has introduced to help build that story in the wake of releases, and obviously drive more engagement in that passive listening environment to kind of point at all the different surfaces that Spotify has. But then also active marketing. We see artists come back and sort of use the fan energy around music to re-engage a song. Maybe there's something from a year ago that's going viral, and you say to your fan base, hey, start posting clips or, TikTok things using my sound and Instagram reels, and I'll take the best ones and I'll put them in my Spotify clip. I'll make you the canvas for 2 weeks if you guys make something compelling enough, or I'll interview a bunch of my fans about what this song means to them, and then I'll put it in the clips feed and really start to integrate the fan reaction and sort of take the energy behind reaction videos and bring it into the ecosystem so people can get excited and engage with the song and just go deeper. So I think there's just a million and many more opportunities for music in the wake of releases now than there ever have been. And it's sort of ever expanding at the, sort of behest of just growing audiences everywhere and a global footprint that I think Spotify has established. We see new audiences popping up for artists all over the world. And I think that's one of the most exciting things to go after in the wake of a release. Is like, what are your goals next? You want to go tour Southeast Asia? Like, we've got something going on there. Let's turn that smoke into more smoke and fire.
Yeah, literally ditto everything Jeff just said. I'll just say, though, that we are also utilizing discovery mode on our recent tracks. We generally put those in and just see what raises its hand and how we can be reactionary and very flexible and nimble when it comes to what we're seeing working. If we see a viral track happening in a certain territory, we want to react, put some spend behind it, maybe put a showcase in effect to amplify what we're seeing. And, you know, we just want to continue to build. Maybe it's creating a video for a song that didn't previously have a video, that an album cut that maybe raised its hand, and, you know, just kind of responding to what the fans are wanting. So agree 100% with Jeff. There's so many different ways that you can call back to that. And also going back to my original point about Maya, like, we now have this content that if ever we see anything raising its hand, then we can just, you know, use that content to call back to Chaos Angel. It's just banked and ready to go for a 1-year anniversary, a 5-year anniversary, just any random moment that may pop up. So I think that's really, really cool about the streaming era.
I'm a really, really big advocate, as you said, Vic, of treating release date like the start of the campaign, very much not the end of it. How are you ensuring that there are kind of tentpole flagship moments in the body language of your campaign in the weeks and months post-release? New video drops, new partnerships, new press looks, new influencer activations, whatever it is, just new moments of visibility. And to Whitney's point about the Maya Hawke story, you know, if some new track on the new Maya project blows and it then results in a load of discovery on an earlier project, to the user, to the kids these days discovering these tracks on TikTok and stuff, it's not new or old to them. It's new when they discover it. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's off a project that's 4 or 5 years old. And I think that, yeah, we have seen on Two Door Cinema Club, for example, who's an artist that we've been putting music out from since the very, very beginning, way back in 2009. They obviously are still putting out, you know, new tracks all the time, but they have a couple of really big evergreen hits in their catalog. Soon as the Sun comes out in the UK, which is, you know, happens for about 3 days a year, you can tell like clockwork, you know, when those tracks are going to go straight into Spotify's big, you know, kind of indie summer festival playlists or whatever, right? And we know that those moments, we plan new campaign activity around those moments, because we know that that's going to be a point where there's going to be a sudden surge of interest into Two Door and into their catalog. And that's going to be a fantastic opportunity for us to capitalize on that new attention and divert some of it towards the new release. So yeah, it's about treating catalog like it's new. It's about planning flagship moments, you know, weeks and months after release. And above all, it's just about patience. And, you know, I know that the urge and the temptation is to just compete with everything else that's going on and be like, quick, we've got to be always releasing. We've got to always be putting out new music. And always posting and always teasing the next thing. But actually, I think that there's also space for a little bit of take a breather. Let's find the ways that people are discovering this track. Let's find which ones are putting their hands up, as my co-panelist said before me, and drive into that before we just, you know, kind of burn through our entire release strategy out of fear of, you know, fading into irrelevance. Hold the line and be patient.
Love it, love it. And Tom, I also game, you know, if you can control the weather, that's a great post-release strategy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my next trick, is to invent a weather machine so that we can just engineer sunshine.
I love it. I love it. Well, I can't believe we are already at time, but what I'm hearing from all of your fantastic answers is, you know, when it comes to artist development, when it comes to audience and fan development, it's happening at all phases of this release cycle, right? It's a constant, whether it's pre-release, release week, post-release. And I'm just really, you know, proud of the tools we've built, whether it's more of clips and countdown pages, or discovery mode and marquee, to help make those abilities possible, regardless of where you are in the release cycle, and knowing, you know, which tools to use when. So I'm really looking forward to working more with the three of you on continuing to improve these tools. And I just really appreciate your time today and kind of chatting us through all of your best practices, all of your industry expertise. And I hope everyone on the call found it insightful and saw some of their questions answered. So really looking forward to maybe the next one we can do, you know, IRL on a couch, maybe have some drinks. But this was super, super fun, and appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Have a great
everyone.
afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.